Hello and welcome to A Lonely Critic. Oh god, I just yawned. Hold on. Everybody calm down. Hello and welcome to A Lonely Critic. My name is Anthony Renteria. Today, I just got out of my screening for The Northman. Written and directed by Robert Eggers, starring Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, and Anya Taylor Joy. Those are the three leads that I think are the three leads. As always, my review will be a non-spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything. I will just go over the brief explanation. So let's begin. What is The Northman about? Okay, so The Northman it's essentially Hamlet, I think, which is essentially The Lion King. This film, supposedly, and I'm just talking off the top of my head, so I might be absolutely wrong, but from the interviews that I've listened to and I've heard, this is based on the original story that all those things were based on that had to do with Viking, Norse history. I don't know the actual terms, but I guess it's the Viking period of time. It's the original story of Hamlet, okay? Let me, it is way too hot in here. It is a story about revenge. It is about a young man who witnesses his father be brutally murdered by his half-brother, and then goes on a journey to enact revenge. Literally, it was like The Lion King, but reality and gruesome. So that's the general gist. Just to get right into what I think is probably the best part of this film is the visuals. Robert Eggers is one of those few directors who shoots on film, so visually it was just absolutely stunning to me. I love anything shot on film. I love the texture of it. I love grain. I love colors. I love the aesthetic of it. Just completely in love with how film looks. And this film looked beautiful. The compositions and shot designs and the way he like moves the camera, I loved it. There's some amazing technical shots, whether it's like one of the early battles in a village, and it was essentially all a one shot, and that was captivating. There's some beautiful like actual like moments of like composition where it's just lighting, you know, it's just darkness and light, and how he composes those two contrasting images. I really love that. And then the way he chose to shoot a lot of the action and drama I found very interesting. I've only seen The Lighthouse from Robert Eggers. I have not seen his previous film The Witch, but I have seen The Lighthouse and I truly love that film. Feels like a completely different type of vibe and tone. Honestly, I was kind of disappointed in the regards of coming from The Lighthouse and expecting a Viking version of The Lighthouse. Will not get that. This is a way more stripped down version of his filmmaking, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know what his style is. Maybe his style hasn't been fully developed, so I don't know. I need to go back and watch The Witch and see maybe if I can start seeing some like inclinations of what his form is. So the visuals were amazing. I love the editing. There were some interesting cuts and transitions. The performances. Alexander Skarsgård is a freaking animal, like just a beast of nature. Pretty sure I've seen him in a movie before. This is the first time that I'm recognizing his name, and like, damn, he goes to freaking town on these people. This is like pure mayhem of brutal murder and just blood and guts and rage. Like, I think if someone were to be like, all right, what movie defines rage the most? I think it would be this movie. Like, this movie just has these moments of absolute painful agony, and it's not even like really glorified, which I found very interesting, because like the closest comparison of a film I can think of is like John Wick, because there is a high kill count and it is a very brutal, like, you see the kills, you know, you see him cut people's heads off, you see him stab swords into people's skulls, you see him disembowel people, you see him slit throats and cut arms and all kind. Every limb is dismembered in this movie at some point. It shows it, but it was interesting because I don't think he glorified it. Like, it didn't feel cool and it didn't feel awesome and it didn't really feel badass. It just felt like these people are crazy. Like, this is what it would actually be like if you got in a sword fight. You would have a limb rapidly cut off. You know, you would lose something of value pretty quickly in a sword fight. I feel like the film really captured that. Like, it felt like a very realistic just swordplay and battle. Probably the most that I've seen in a long time. Can't remember the last movie I saw with swords that I think captured brutality in this way. Skarsgård does a great performance. Like, the way he screams and like internalizes and shows his rage is absolutely effective and interesting to watch, and sometimes scary. Like, sometimes I was like, oh shit, like I kind of want this dude not to do what he's gonna do, because he's gonna go to town on some people, which was an interesting feeling. And I think that was kind of the purpose. Like, there is the film is talking about the cyclical nature of revenge and bloodlust and pain and agony, and how that is just a never-ending cycle. And then just you being in the head of a protagonist who is just at the tail end of the cycle, someone who's trying to close a loop. It's interesting. There is moments where you don't really sympathize with him or empathize with him, but he probably is, I guess, the lesser of evils, but then it's like everything's evil. So I don't know. It was very mixed emotions, and I like that. I like that about the movie, because I don't think, especially in this time period, like, nothing was black and white. Like, someone killed your dad, you had to kill them and kill their sons. Like, that's just what made sense to them. And I feel like the film does a good job establishing that with things they do that make no sense. The amount of sacrifices and animal killings portrayed on screen for no reason, it's a lot. So I will say, just off that thought, if you have any sensitivity to animals being dismembered or killed on screen, I would not recommend you watch this movie. I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say horses in specific. There was some horse killing that is pretty brutal, and then I was like, yeah, I think if someone really loved horses, they might not enjoy this movie, because it's one thing seeing like a human get dismembered, but then like an animal, I don't know. I'll offer that as like a trigger warning to anyone. The other performer I want to talk about is Anya Taylor Joy. Obviously, she is like, it's Anya Taylor Joy. Like, she's just on her own level of existence in performance. She just has an uncanny ability to embody characters, and then her physical presence is stunning, and the way she delivers everything she says is also stunning. And she holds her own against this like massive bear man, and like she feels at equal strength with him, which is absolutely awesome to see. And that's just a testament to her abilities and her fortitude as a performer. I do wish there were more scenes with her in Skarsgård. I mean, there is plenty of scenes in the film, but that is one of the faults that I'm feeling, is that I kind of wanted more. I kind of wanted to see them, I kind of want to see them be them more outside of this central narrative. And I'll get to that maybe when I talk about the narrative a little more towards the end. I want to point out the score. The score is absolutely phenomenal. I love the sounds of this film. It is just a brutal bashing of sounds and noises, and the instruments that I listened to an interview, and the director was talking about like every single instrument they had was recreations or interpretations of Viking instruments that were period accurate, a bunch of authentic chants and stuff like that, and that was freaking awesome. There was moments in the film where like my blood pressure was rising just because the score was absolutely ripping the theater up, and I loved it. It was like pure rage just bubbling with these sounds and chants. Phenomenal work. Probably gonna be in my best scores of the year. I love that aspect of this movie. The sound design was also amazing. There is a sword that gets acquired in the film, and the sound of it unsheathing is probably the best unsheathing sound I have ever heard in a film, period, bar none. Beautiful sound design work. This is like such a great year for sound design already. I feel like with the Batman, and then with this, I don't know, there's like, I kind of want to rewatch all the scenes where he and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like it was so heightened, you know, like it was like an exclamation mark, you know, like I tell there was some form of manipulation I mean, all sound effects are manipulated. They're never really what you think they are, you know, like a lot of like impacts are like fruit clashing or breaking or whatever, but the way it just like, it sounds like the anxiety, it sounds like the emotion that the character is having by pulling it out. And that is such an interesting way of using sound design to enact an emotional reaction subconsciously with the viewer about the character that we're watching. So phenomenal work. I love that. And then I guess we'll get to the narrative. So the narrative, I thought, well, like the narrative and the overall story and how this film plays out, I guess is what I want to talk about here for a couple minutes before I wrap this up. I like the movie. I feel like I've covered all the technicalities. The experience of the movie, it was a great movie. Okay, I think this was a great movie, but it does have some flaws that I'm still like, can't really put my finger on what I think should have been fixed or what could have been improved. The beginning was very slow. First 20 minutes, I would say, it doesn't, like, I don't really feel like I am with the character in a momentum driving way. Once the narrative arrives to almost the center part, and then we have almost, this is what we're gonna do, this is what's gonna happen, fate will unveil itself. I think once we hit that moment of the film, which is about the middle of the film, that's when I think the story really picks up, and I really become involved, and I really become interested with Skarsgård and Anya Taylor Joy and the entire emotional crux of the narrative. I became enthralled with what was going to happen next. And then towards the end, like the last 20 minutes, it kind of teetered off again. And I don't know if it was just like we lost momentum. Like I almost wanted it to kind of go off the rails. Like I've only seen The Lighthouse from Eggers. I haven't seen The Witch. But I love how at the end of The Lighthouse it goes off the rails. My only complaint with The Lighthouse was also the ending. I feel like it went off the rails and then it kept going for like 2 minutes longer than it should have. You know, it should have just went off the rails and then ended. I wish this film would have gone off the rails into just absolutely mayhem and chaos. There was almost like, not really like false endings or false starts or whatever, but there was definitely like the tension was rising, and then it would stop to bring up something else or to wrap up something else, and then the tension would rise again. And I think that really took me out of the movie. So that's why it's an out of 8. And it's honestly like, I hope on a rewatch it improves, but I can see it going down to a 7 just because of that, the vibe of the movie, you know, like the progress of the story and narrative. The middle part is just so great and so fun. I would watch that unwind for days and weeks. But I don't want to linger on the negative too much, because it was a great experience. I loved watching it. There was so many interesting elements, from the costume designs to the set designs to the mythology, the history, all the things that Eggers is so fascinated with, and you can tell like he is history buff and he loves these time period and narratives. I do think it should have maybe gotten like another rewrite. Like there's something with the rollout of the narrative that I think was amiss, and I think that's what's bringing my score down. My current review is an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a great movie. I think if you like Eggers, see, and this is where it gets weird. I'll just ramble about this just for a minute before I head out. Like, I don't know how this is gonna do well with general audiences, because it's not entertaining enough, I think, to sustain a general audience. And then for the Egger heads, and then for the indie artsy film people like myself, I don't think it goes deep enough into the psyche of our lead character enough to satisfy me at an extreme way where I want to like rewatch it. Like, I do want to rewatch this film at some point, but it's not like an immediate, I need to rewatch this now, which I've had a couple of movies like that this year already. So I think this movie is in a weird spot. I know this film had reports of a lot of like test screenings and like Eggers editing the film based on studio notes. I'm not gonna say I could feel it, because it does feel like, it's weird. It feels like a studio movie that is just beautifully shot, beautifully created, and then just absolutely drenched with actual rage and anger that I don't think any studio director would have made. So like, I think that's the essence of Eggers, was how rageful and gruesome and violent that the film gets. I think that's the Eggers element, and then everything else is maybe the Hollywood element. I don't know, it's weird, but it doesn't feel like either win, so it almost feels like a loss for both. So would I recommend it to anyone who liked The Lighthouse? I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I liked the movie. I thought it was a great experience, even though there was flaws in the pacing in the beginning and the ending. I feel like there's flaws with the emotional narrative. I feel like I wasn't connected enough with the main character and his relationships and point of all his things, but it was still a great movie. Like, I love crazy moments and sequences and set pieces that we experience. But I am worried that this film's not going to do well with general audiences. I mean, I could honestly see some people go into this movie and be excited because it's Vikings and it's Nordic stuff and all that kind of stuff, and maybe they do like some of the action sequences and the violence, and then they're like, but it kind of sucks, you know? Like, I can see that feeling. Yeah, so I think that's going to conclude this review. I'm sorry if this was a mess. I am very exhausted. I'm very tired. I need to go to sleep so I can go to work. So thank you so much for watching this review of The Northman. If you watched the movie, let me know what you thought of it. Leave that in the comments. You can check out my other channels below in the description if they are out, and you can check out my links to hopefully my written review and other things I have to say about this movie below. Thank you so much and have a good week. Let me know if you watched this movie. Let me know if you liked it. Yeah, take care of yourself.